Thank you for staying with us this morning on Motivation. This is something that quite excites me and at the same time makes me pensive. We have Ladipo Shoyombo, an oil and gas executive entrepreneur, a pastor, and founder of the youth empowerment platform, Crosspoint Innovate. He is passionate about youth empowerment, especially at this time when youth feel disenfranchised. And this morning, we're talking about setting goals for the new year.
Right.
And all of that. That is something that, you know, a lot of people, they've gotten tired of. It seems cliche,
like
resolutions, almost like a cycle and all of that.
Yeah.
How do you break that? Is it maybe a jinx or something, and actually set goals and get to achieve them?
Well, thanks again for having me. First of all, like you just said, goal setting every year or at the beginning of every year is something everybody preaches about, but eventually people don't get to, achieve those goals, and it's almost like a cycle all over again. But I think for what is worth, it's good to critically analyze what causes us not to achieve those goals. And mostly is as a result of certain negative emotions. Right. What is still key is to realize that goal setting is the master art of success. You must have, all successful people have intensified goal setting mindset, because your mind needs a focus. Because once your mind has a focus, then your potentials are activated towards that focus. So your mind will always need a focus. Without goals, you will just drift away in the wind of life. So goals are very important. It's still good to know that they are important. But we must be careful about setting negative emotions that steal that drive, and stop us from achieving that goal.
Negative emotions that steal that. Now, let's talk about the goal setting itself. How do you set goals? You know, some people talk about not setting too big goals. Maybe you should set goals in smaller goals that you can achieve and all of that. How exactly would you say when it comes to goals? How do you set goals? Should you set things that will make you strive, extra, and which is where many people fail, because maybe when they try a bit and then they can't hit it, they say, okay, let me wait till next year and all of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing is that, goal setting and a vision is given to man to get you to your preferred future in spite of current circumstances, right? So it's an ability in man God has given man, I believe, to bring about your potentials. So yes, for various people, different goals and different criteria, but all in all, you just have to look at some of the things you are passionate about and the things that you've always looked forward to, and use that as a means to, begin to strategize on certain goals that are really personal.
Now, when you do fall once in a while, as you probably would, how do you get back up? Because that's where there's already a problem. But I'm like, okay, I want to do this, but I failed, or I didn't get to hit it this month. How do I get back? How do I overcome that negative emotion which you spoke about, which has come? How do you overcome it and get back on track?
That's very, very important. So the first thing is that you have to really identify negative emotions. Some people just feel, it's happening to me. They don't even identify it. They can't differentiate it. So you must be able to identify that these emotions are negative, and they are actually causing me, they might actually cause me an eventual harm in terms of achieving my goals. So one of the things that you do to manage some of the negative emotions is the law of substitution. So two emotions, or you can't think about positive thoughts and negative thoughts at the same time. Your mind can hold both of them. So what you do is that when you're having those negative emotions, try and substitute them with some positive thoughts,
irrespective of the circumstances.
Yes.
Now, how do you manage it when the circumstances don't feel so nice, when the situations are not optimal? And then most of the time the emotions come from, maybe you look at it, hey, this is not happening, this is not happening. Irrespective of circumstances, how do you put positive thoughts when the circumstances don't align?
That's a very good one. So your mind is very powerful, right? Your mind will control your body. Your mind will be able to reflect certain things. So in spite of what you are physically experiencing, your mind has a way of giving you a different perspective to be able to maneuver through what you're physically experiencing, because and the truth is that in spite of what you're experiencing, there is still a part of positivity that still exists. So your mind could help,
so your
help
mind is, everything happens in the mind.
Exactly.
And that's what people talk about. How do you master the mind? People talk about how the battlefield, if you can win in your mind, then you can win somewhere else. How do you train your mind to be that strong? Because it takes some training.
Well, first of all, what your mind, the content of your mind will be determined by what you are exposed to, right? So exposing yourself to right knowledge, exposing yourself to right relationships will eventually train your mind to become what you want your mind to become. So you have to stretch it by being intentional about it.
Being intentional. In this day of social media where people, content just hits you right back, forward, center, and all over. People do have challenges, curtailing maybe their feed and how to get information or restrict information in this age of social media. How do young ones, how can they, especially I'm making a reference to social media. How do they find a way to tame their mind or to ensure that they get the right information into
their mind? So it's discipline. But sometimes I know it's very difficult to be disciplined in the first place. If they could achieve it, then they would have done it. But sometimes when you understand the potential of the mind and the capacity it has to play or it can bring about in your life, and the positivity it can bring about in your life, then you put much more value. I'll say that when there's a vision, sacrifice can become bearable. So when you understand the power of what your mind can really do for you, then to get a discipline or to put out a disciplined life towards protecting your mind will become achievable, because you now know the value of what your mind can actually do for you. So a thought or a thinking pattern, you can't touch it as compared to other things, but it still has a lot of effects on your life. So when you understand the effect it has, then you can put the discipline into it that is required to
all right, then talking about circle and, when you talk about people you are around, how does your company, how does it affect you when it comes to setting those goals and, training your mind? Physical company, now we've spoken about social media. How does physical company, where should you be? Where should you not be? Who should you be around?
That's right.
With who should you not be seen with or be around?
Yeah, there are some people that that you shouldn't be around with, obviously, because those negative emotions rise more when you are with them.
Okay, so you need to, when you relate with people, you need to watch what rises up within you, the kind of emotions that happen. Yeah?
That's right. So you need to identify it and limit it as much as possible, and move around people that trigger those positive emotions and trigger you to look into, all the goals and setting mindset that you have already created initially.
All right. Finally, how do we, after setting the goals, how do you measure yourself? How do you know, measurement? I know. Yeah. How do you know that you've hit where you're supposed to hit? How do you measure your goals when you've set them? How do you measure them?
Yeah. So I mean, once you've set goals, then you need to obviously measure them, right? So measuring them will be personal, depending on but you should, as much as possible, understand that there are various, once you do well, appreciate yourself, and take it a step further to say, okay, I'll do better next time. But whatever you achieve, you should still give yourself a pat on the back.
All right, thank you so much. Any final words on all of this? You have any final words?
Well, just still move ahead with your goal setting and dream big, in spite of what you, the failures and all that. Still have a goal setting mindset. And it's still very, very good to set goals.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. It was a pleasure having you all through, and we'll still get to see you one more time. Thank you so much.